Hello guys, I'm back with a new video. So today we're going to stop to Canada and also Ghana and talk to my brother Edz. Are you ready?
Hello, I'm Edz Gyamfi. I'm a dancer, instructor, choreographer, educator, actor, and student of dance. I was born in Ghana, so in Kumasi, where my family migrated over to Canada back in '88. So we stayed in Montreal for a few years, and we moved over to Ottawa, where I spent a lot of my years growing up. And I moved to Toronto back in 2013. So I've been in Toronto for about 10 years now. How long have I been dancing? I've been dancing since I was 18, so last year of high school. So I would say I'm 37 now, doing the math. Math is mathing. I'd probably say, what, 20 years? Yeah, I've been dancing for 20 years. Damn.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what is the Afro dance style that you're teaching?
I'm currently not teaching any drop-ins, but when I do teach Afro, my heart lies in West Africa. I'm a Ghana boy, so I will always incorporate Zonto steps along with, Nigeria, the Niger style. But I always like to mix and dabble with different, seasonings from different diasporas within the continent. So yeah, I like to definitely mix and dabble and, take some steps from out of Gabon, or take some steps from out of Cameroon, or take some steps from out of Angola or Congo, or even take some steps from out of South Africa. So I like to create a fusion, but my base and my heart lies in the Azonto and Niger styles.
I have a very important question for you. How can we protect Afro dances?
I think it's simple. I think, by being able to be, well, first of all, knowing what role you play, especially if you're not from the culture, right? Being an observer, being a student, and understanding that, there are people that have contributed and literally dedicated their lives to this culture, this social dance, right? So first of all, acknowledging and respecting that first and foremost, and going to the root, going to the source, So if you want to learn, more about dancehall culture, you can't just do that in the classroom. You know what I mean? It defeats the purpose. Like, the actual master class is actually in the dance hall, right? You got to go to the parties, especially, going to the parties in Jamaica to get a better grasp of the culture and social dance. And of course, going to your local, if there are any local jams or parties, go to those and to take a dive into the culture, right? But the culture can't be learned in the classroom. It can't. You can't learn that in an institution. You can't do that, right? You got to go to the source in itself. So same thing with Afro dances as well too, right? You have to listen to. You got to be able to take in the music, listen to the music, and also learn from the either originators of the dance styles, or learn from the people that have dedicated their lives to that set dance style within the African diaspora, right? The conversation, is a never-ending one, right? The conversation always needs to be had, because you want to, if you want to preserve the culture and the integrity of the culture and the social dances, it's more than just dancing itself. It's having that conversation. And the conversation never stops, right? So I think that's how you preserve it. And I think, if each person does their due diligence and immersing themselves in the culture and understanding what role they play, right, in the culture, whether it's someone that is from that diaspora, right? What role would you play? Would you play the role of the educator, or the person that is one of the sources to go to, versus if you're not from the diaspora, right? What role do you play? And understanding that, okay, you know what, I am a student. I will always be an observer of the culture, and I will always respect it from that standpoint, right? Rather than appropriate the culture and kind of take the culture and use it for personal gain, right? So I feel I think those are some of the ways that you could protect the integrity of the social dancers, by immersing yourself in the culture, gaining as much knowledge from the sources within the cultures as well too, and just seeing it for yourself, because there's something to be said about firsthand accounts of if you're at Uptown Mondays, right? There's so many things that are going on at Uptown Mondays that you'd have to be there to see. But if you're learning it from, or hearing it from a fourth hand or a third hand account, it's it kind of depletes the purpose, right? So being there to see it, being there to live and experience it, I think definitely does help with preserving the integrity of the social dances, right? So rather than kind of seeing it from or learning it from afar or trying to understand it from afar, like that in itself, creates room for a lot of errors and a lot of misinterpretations and misunderstandings. So going to the source, you got to go to the source. You have to go to the source, especially if you're not from the diaspora. And if you're from the diaspora, I mean, it's a matter of now, being connected to your roots and understanding, what's come before you, and connecting to that and having a deeper and greater understanding and appreciation from where you come from, right? So I think that's some of the ways, or one of the ways that you could definitely preserve or the integrity of the social dances, right? It's a conversation that never stops. So good question. Another really good question.
All right, so we understand that you're teaching dancehall and you're teaching also Afro dance fusion, let's say, right? So, what is the difference between dancehall and Afro dance?
Before I answer that question, I would have to look at it from different lenses, right? And the thing about this great question is that there's room for different perspectives, and I think that makes for a great conversation. I'd say first and foremost, music and geography. Only in the way that you could trace the source or find the root. And the reason why I'm saying that is, let's say for instance, if we're looking at both diasporas, if we're looking at like dancehall music. Dancehall music, we know has very heavy influence from out of Jamaica, right? We know that to be true. Like that's where dancehall music is coming from, right? That's where the root and the essence is coming from, right? That's the source. With Afro, it's a bit different because now, as you're looking at this big umbrella, there are different sounds coming out of this, umbrella, right? So sounds from out of Angola or Togo or Cameroon or Gabon or Ghana or Nigeria, Congo, Angola, like those places all have different sounds, right? Coming from out of that diaspora. So with that sound coming out of those diasporas, the dance is going to be very, very much different. The movement is going to be very different because each diaspora, in regards to music and production and sounds and all that, has its own encryption in regards to the lifestyle, just the storytelling. So when you're looking at movement mixed in with that, it creates its own sets of vocabulary and sequences that are very unique to that diaspora, right? The essence per se is very much different. It differs amongst different African nations, right? When you're looking at that, so under that big umbrella, when you're looking at the sounds, that in terms of tracing the source, dancehall coming from out of Jamaica, and then Afro music is just like continent wide, right? So many different sounds coming out of there. So with that said, when I'm looking at the way people dance, right, the essence is going to be very different from where in Jamaica, when you're listening to music, like especially dancehall music or even world music, right, the way they interpret the music is going to be in and around sort of the same in regards to like sequences that are being created or party moves that are being created. They're going to be similar, but obviously it really depends on now people from different walks of life interpreting or adding their own kind of spice into a particular sequence or a particular move, right? With Afro, there's like an infinite amount of ranges, right? Where if you're listening to a particular sound or particular sounds from out of different regions, you're gonna come out with multiple ways of moving, and again, interpretation to oneself in terms of how one breaks down movement in their body, right? But again, the nuances and the essence are very potent, and especially in regards to like the various Afro music that is out there that have dances to them, along with dancehall as well too, having various various music that is very representative of that diaspora as well too. You're gonna move completely different. So the geography, depending on where you are, is gonna get you to move differently, right? No sounds are the same, right? When you're looking at both diasporas. Another differentiator, I'd say, if I'm looking at it from a different lens, would be the usage of the waistline, especially winding up your waistline. When one is thinking about that, especially with dancehall, you know that it's more female dancehall that uses that or has that usage of the winding of the waistline, right? Where men aren't really winding up their waistline like that, unless they're dancing with a female. That'd be the exception, but I don't see many winding up of the waist for males in their steps or whatnot, right? The usage of the waistline is there, but they're not winding up the waistline. In comparison to like Afro, dance, it's like, when you're looking at, nombolo, right? Like that is winding up your waistline on both male and female part, right? When you're looking at different African like countries that, that are very, connected to the sound over in that diaspora, they're also winding up their waistline as well too, right? Nombolo from out of Congo being that one example, right? So I feel like Afro dance accepts winding up the waistline from both male and female. It's more accepted and it's normalized, right? Versus, dancehall culture may not be susceptible for males having to wind the waistlines, the way that females do that, in dancehall culture, right? All that to say, from the lens of like bringing both Afro dance and dancehall dancer together in one room. If they're listening to music, they're listening to the same song. The great thing about it is that, especially with the production, modern production now, the sounds coming from out of Africa or coming from out of Jamaica are very fluid in the ways that like, an Afro dancer could easily dance to a dancehall track or a dancehall produced track, and vice versa. A dancehall dancer could dance to an Afro produced track, and that in itself, that fluidity in itself is a beautiful thing to kind of like to witness, to see, right? But the difference maker between those two is that they're gonna bring their essence to the forefront, right? That's gonna be radiating if an Afro dancer is seen dancing to a dancehall track and a dancehall dancer is seen dancing to an Afro track. Their essence from their diaspora is going to blossom, and you're going to see the difference, right? In the ways that they move, right? Now, the ways in which an Afro dancer and a dancehall dancer would move, if you were to like kind of break that down into its finite point, you'd see that the technique is very much similar. It's just how it's used. It's how it's interpreted in their bodies, right? So techniques that I'm talking about would be like your bounce, the way that they use their bounce, the way that they use their upper body to rock forward or back or side to side, right? The way that they use their hop, and ways that they hop is very different from both Afro and dancehall. The way that they would, use a wave, right? A body wave, right? Would be very different, or either different or similar depending on what they're doing, right? So the techniques are similar, but it's how it's broken. It's how they use that new vocabulary, and the nuances, and again the essence of their movement, right, is going to differ between both diasporas. So I think that's a great thing about, I guess, the uniqueness of both dancehall and Afro dance, right? They managed to use the same similar technique, but they look completely different, right? Or they look like they also complement each other as well too, since they're so different, but yet they're using some of the similar technique and structure, but again, different diaspora, different music, different geography. Obviously that's gonna spawn something completely different in each dancer, right, from that region or diaspora. So yeah, that's a really good question. Wow, that's like one of those questions that like deserves its own like podcast, or just like like in-depth talk.
Okay, unfortunately, this is my last question for you. What is your favorite either dancehall or Afro dance step currently? Can you show us?
My favorite Afro or dancehall step would have to come from the dynamic duo themselves and the dynamic legends called Baki. All right, now those two brothers are probably one of the baddest dancers I know in dancehall right now. And yes, they created a move called Baki, and it looks like this. And that's Bapi.
Thank you for watching this video. Please share if you like and see you in the next one. Bye.